Yeah.
All right, so we're joined from Jackson at Frascogna Law Firm by Alexis Rayford, Lex the Lawyer on all social media platforms. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today. This is our business law class here at Velma Jackson High School. I've got a room full here with me, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, including my good friend and fellow AKA April Majors over there at Ridgeland High School, and my friend Jennifer Code at the Academic Options Center and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's not many people that get Frascogna correct on the first try. So
Well,
kudos to you for that.
Uh, there was a athlete back in the day that had the name. That's the only reason I know it. But before we talk about all the things you do
Gotcha.
as an attorney and some of the things that kids need to be aware of in business or if they want to be entrepreneurs, just give us a little background. You went to Jackson State, Mississippi College Law School, so good
I
combo of
did.
institutions there. So just tell us about your college HBCU experience and then your law school experience.
Okay, perfect. So I actually, before we get to college, let's backtrack to talk about
Mhm.
high school, right? Because I'm dealing with the classroom of high schoolers. So I originally was born and raised in Jackson, which is very culturally different from moving and finishing out in Madison. I was a Germantown graduate, one of the first.
Did not know that.
So
That's
those
cool.
are two extremes. Yeah, so those two extremes actually prepared me for my collegiate matriculation. I went on to first attend Ole Miss. So Ole Miss had a program where high school students could come and attend college early. You would live on campus, attend classes with the college students, and no one would know that you were in high school. So that's where I kind of got my start. Also did dual enrollment through Germantown with Holmes Community College.
Mhm.
Highly recommend those tracks, just because
Yeah.
they help me to prepare and get college credits ahead of time and also acclimate to the lifestyle of college because it's really different when you don't have parents doing your laundry and telling you when to get up and eat, but you're actually having to live the life, make the schedule, maintain the grades. Um, and so that was a great preliminary introduction to college. Well, after having that taste test of Ole Miss, I got a good dose of reality and realized I didn't want to be that far from my family. Because when you're in college, you still need a lot of support. And I wanted to kind of be able to just pop up at home and get a good meal whenever I need it. So I came back, decided to attend Jackson State. Now, being a native of Jackson, I really did not consider Jackson State. It just wasn't in the forefront of my mind, pushed it back. I'm like, oh, that's just down the street. But I happened to take a tour, went up to the college, just really loved the programs that I saw and how rigorous the courses were, and that they actually connected students with a lot of internships. Of course, you'll hear people say all the time, it's not about what you know, but who you know. So having those opportunities where you can take advantage of internships and grants and things of that nature will really affect everything down the road. So I decided to attend Jackson State. I received a full scholarship, which also will make or break, your decision as to where you attend. You follow the dollars. And I enjoyed my HBCU experience. It was everything that I dreamed of. I set out goals before I attended. I knew that I wanted to pledge and become an AKA, and having those college credits early helped to do that. I knew that I wanted to run for Student Government Association, and I became the Chief Justice of the university. So any student
Oh,
that got in
cool.
trouble came before me in a panel of others. Yep. So it kind of laid the foundation for my law school trajectory. I did a lot of research, pre-law competitions, things of that nature, and traveling. I love my experience at Jackson State. It allowed me to travel on their dime. Got a paid trip to Puerto Rico to go present some research. I
Oh,
mean, my
wow.
HBCU experience opened up a plethora of doors, just very invaluable, the connections that I made. Well, I decided to graduate in 3 years, having all of these college credits ahead of time. Now, that's a bit of an overachiever, and I don't recommend it. I do not recommend graduating early because college is like the best years of your life. Live on campus, experience the parties, experience the fun of hanging out with your friends and going to class and all of that. And I shouldn't have rushed it, should have stayed another year. I get why people are fifth and sixth year seniors. Um, but being stressed out, trying to do this crazy thing of graduating in 3 years, I decided to take a job out in California. So I packed up and moved to LA. That was a culture shock. Going to LA, I realized they don't know how to fry chicken. So started having my grade. And one of my mentors, he actually is a Harvard graduate, Harvard law graduate. And he calls me and he says, "Hey, what's your plan as far as it relates to law school?" And I said, "Well, I'm out here in California right now. I'm just taking a break, maybe doing a gap year or whatever." And he told me that is a horrible plan. I needed that reality check. So I applied to law school maybe like 3 weeks before school started. I applied, I was accepted, and I brought my butt back to Mississippi. And that's where I got my PWI experience as far as dealing with a private Christian institution. I definitely think MC made a great difference as it relates to my legal profession. Being right here in the capital where all of the courts are, where there are a plethora of law firms and opportunities, really made a big difference as far as networking. Again, not what you know, but who you know. And
And who
so it
knows
allowed
you?
for me to shake hands with a lot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so there were opportunities that I was availed to through the law school, such as moot court competitions. I was able to travel, meet a lot of judges, a lot of attorneys. Um, MC does a great job of having adjunct professors that are attorneys and judges out in the community that will come to the school and teach classes. And so from there, I actually met my current employer and my previous employer. So I
That's
was
awesome.
able to also work at the Court of Appeal upon my graduation. And that was from meeting a judge through an organization offered by the law school. So really made me sit down because there was a big difference from your HBCU experience of learning to juggle the partying and the play and the academics versus pure academics. Everybody is caring about class rank, GPAs, and opportunities. And so definitely wanted to keep life slow in law school, didn't want to be around too many distractions because law school is all in or you're all out. And
Yeah.
so being staying here at home where I was familiar with the area made sure that I really focused in on school instead of being in tourist mode, wanting to travel and explore the city. You really have to be focused. But that opportunity made me work hard, made me stand out amongst others, and definitely put me where I am today.
That's awesome. Now, I did want to mention a couple things before we talk about what you do as an attorney. I'm glad you mentioned about the experience at Jackson State. I actually have several students that have gone there, and I had one student that she's now a social worker for CPS, and she said she never lived on campus, but she still had the campus experience. She said it was all in perspective and what you decided to get out of it. Her family really couldn't afford a lot. She decided, she wanted to save money, didn't pay for a dorm room. But she said, I might as well live on campus because I was always there. And then another thing is, with
Mm-hmm.
HBCU, I heard the president of Tougaloo say this one time that historically black does not mean exclusively black. Because I hear kids all the time say, I don't want to go to an
That's
HBCU.
right.
I've been going to black schools my whole life. And I'm like, Jackson State is not an all black school. And also, all black people are not a monolith of each other. So you're going to have a diverse education. And then,
That's
especially at
correct.
Jackson State, and or, I mean, pretty much at all the schools in Mississippi, but especially at Jackson State, you have people from all over the world. It is not just black people from Mississippi. You have people from all over the country. You have people from Africa, Europe, South America, Asia, and it really is such a great melting pot,
Mm-hmm.
a great way to experience different cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a melting pot of different cultures. You're meeting people from all over, and their backgrounds and their life stories are different. And so you're meeting a plethora of different personalities. My husband actually did not live on campus. We met while at Jackson State, and so we kind of compare our experience. He lived on the campus pretty much whenever he was not in class or not at work, he was there outside. And that's the great love about Jackson State. Like you enjoy being on the plaza, being in the student center, campus activity board. And so I remember I planned like laser tag and things like that for my classmates to do on campus. So you are meeting people from all over, from California to Chicago, to Ethiopia, from Japan. And I mean, you are having a great time living out the best period of your life. But even if you don't live on campus, you don't want to leave campus. And so that was fun. I enjoyed living on campus, living in the dorm. I wanted to have that dorm experience. I know a lot of people don't always do that, and that's okay because you end up making friends, and before you know it, you're hanging out in their dorm, spending the nights too. But it's just about having like that truly embedded experience, and just meeting people from all walks of life because they really become your best friends. Now looking back, like my friends are college professors, Microsoft execs, federal FBI employees, and things of that nature. Because doctors, you're meeting so many people who are focused about their careers, but also there to have a good time and make more friends. And so those friends go with you and stick with you for a lifetime.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, you deal in entertainment and entrepreneurial law, and I think that's important to understand because look, we've all watched the courtroom dramas. Everybody thinks all lawyers do is just nail people on the witness stand and talk people into confessions and throw people in jail. But you know that not only is that just a minuscule part of law practice, but just because you deal with an attorney doesn't mean somebody's going to jail. In fact, it rarely means somebody's going to jail. I think it's important for kids to understand you're going to have to deal with attorneys a lot of times in your life, and it does not necessarily a bad thing. You know, especially if you want to buy land, if you want to buy a business, if you want to buy a home, if you're ever going to get married, if you, heaven forbid, if you ever get divorced, if there's ever any will and trust issues. So none of those involve anybody going to jail, but they all involve different types of attorneys. So I know you focus on entertainment and entrepreneurial law. And we have a lot of kids that may see this later and with me now that say, look, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. I want to have XYZ. I want to have this. But they see the fun part on Instagram, but what they don't see is the paperwork and the planning that goes into it. So talk about, you know, what you do as an
Oh,
entrepreneurial
yeah.
attorney, some of the things you do with trademarks and licenses and building codes and all that, because you can cost yourself millions of dollars without spending, if you don't spend a few $1,000s up front to get all the legal paperwork done. So just talk a little bit about that and some of the things in Mississippi that would be necessary to open a business.
For sure. So proactive versus reactive. I tell all of my clients this. So proactive means handle it on the front end so that you are not fighting the problem and reacting to it on the back end. And so, I mean, that really makes or breaks the lawyer's price. When we are being proactive, our rates are low. When we are being reactive, that bill is up there. And so, when you are thinking about starting a business, the moment you really have committed to that thought and you're about to start um, putting things into writing and you're ready to move forward on that, that's when you should call an attorney. Typically, you can consult with an attorney for zero to very little dollars, and they can help steer you in the right path. A lot of times, we listen to people on TikTok, Instagram, and our family cousins tell us, "Hey, you can start an LLC. You pay this $50, and you do this, and then you have a business." And while they are correct in that, they are still missing a lot of the important foundational work that's needed to truly protect your business and make sure that it's built on solid foundation. And so, talking to an attorney can make sure that you're guided in the right direction to say, well, let's consider what type of business formation is correct for you. Not only that, they're going to say, hey, you need to make sure that you have a business bank account because a lot of times we get these LLCs, but we don't open a business bank account. The point of an LLC is to protect your personal assets so that anything that happens with that business, someone can't later sue you and say, well, I'm going to sue you and I'm going to take your house and your car and everything else. And so they don't have that business bank account and they start commingling funds. Commingling those funds means that you can now what we call pierce the corporate veil. The LLC means nothing. And so talking to an attorney on that front end of making sure that you have the correct structure, that you thought about all of these pitfalls that could potentially get you in trouble later, you make sure that you avoid those problems. So again, proactive versus reactive, because thoroughly planning through that business idea with an attorney will make sure that you can avoid a lot of problems later. You might have this business name in your mind and you just love it. I want to make sure, for example, I'm going to name this business Amazon. I love Amazon. It's just dealing with the safari, and that's what my business name is going to be. Well, have you run a trademark search to see if you can truly name your business Amazon? And a lot of times people don't do that. They say, well, I got the Instagram name, so that's enough. Is it really? And then they end up getting a cease and desist letter from Amazon saying, if you don't stop using my name, I'm going to sue you for millions of dollars. Well, you could have avoided that had you prepared. And so prior planning prevents poor performance. Making sure that you sit down with someone and really talk through what you're thinking. And that's just kind of throwing ideas back and forth. A lot of times when you're meeting with an attorney for an entrepreneur, that's what you're doing. You're pitching ideas back and forth so that that attorney can make sure that they're elevating the opportunities for you that will later come. And making sure that you can avoid all lawsuits and things of that nature. Now, that's the fun side of planning and talking with an entrepreneurial attorney. But on the back end, a lot of times entrepreneurial attorneys are the ones you don't want to hear from, because we're telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. To take that down off of social media, you're infringing on someone's copyright. You're going to end yourself up in a lawsuit. And people don't always like to hear what they can't and shouldn't do, but the attorney is there to protect them. Now, if you don't take our advice, that's fine. But then make sure you're ready to take the bill that comes on the back end when we are fighting in litigation for you. And like you said, you see the glamour, the glitz and glam of what's on social media. But I can tell you right now, there's about 20 binders in my desk from litigation. And they are hefty binders. They're about this thick. And I read every single page in them. So it's also about getting into the nitty gritty and doing what it takes to make sure that you give zealous advocacy for your client. Now, that's in that entrepreneurial realm. Everybody wants to know about the entertainment realm, right? So the entertainment realm is really fun because that's different every day. So in my profession, none of my days are monotonous. They don't look the same. Now that's in comparison to your typical, like, let's say, public defender or tax attorney, where they're simply reading through documents and typing every single day, or they're either suiting up for court and going into the courtroom every single day. My days look very different. One day, and to preface, my law firm is very, very untraditional. So we actually have a studio built into our firm, a full production studio. So
Wow.
some days I have clients that are in there filming movies, a client that may come in the next day and film a music video. And then
Interesting.
we might be offset, making sure that a client buildings are in compliance, to doing copyrights and the trademarks. And I might just be in here one day on the phone negotiating deals on a movie or distributions of a song. Um, Other days it might not look as fun because we fully service entrepreneurs, right? So I might have a client that says, hey, I just finished this movie and my wife wants to divorce me and sue me for thousands of dollars in alimony. Well, I'm their attorney and I don't want to have to send them out the door to somebody else. So that might also look like me suiting up to go and handle a divorce or a child custody dispute in court for them. It might look like me sitting in here typing a bunch of motions, where I'm printing paper all nights and day. And again, that might look like 20 binders preparing for litigation on a matter. But all of the days are very different. But it's whatever the client needs. And so I make sure that that gets done.
Yeah, and I think that's important too because I think we still have kids all the time that want have dreams of being a performer, dreams of being an athlete. And I don't think they understand the contracts and how that works on the back end, because just because you see somebody flashing money on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube doesn't mean that money is going in their pocket. Record contracts are very complex. Athlete contracts are very complex. So, and we haven't gotten too far in this class, but we have talked about, you can say somebody said they were going to do something all day long, but if it's not in writing in a legally binding document, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. So you always hear the cliche, sign or read everything before you sign it. So what types of mistakes have you seen people make by signing something and then not realizing what they were on the hook for?
Costly mistake. Right now, I had some young business and, and they had an LLC, so they thought that they did everything right. What they didn't realize was they didn't think they needed to pay an attorney to read that contract on the front end. They said, "Oh, I'm used to signing lease agreements. I've read through this. This is fine." And they go ahead and sign it. What they didn't realize was that there were personal guarantees. So the language of contracts can seem convoluted, or sometimes it seems normal to you and you really don't think about how that plain language affects you. And because it said that they would personally guarantee that the lease would be paid, now it doesn't matter if your LLC is out of business or if your LLC was supposed to protect your house and your car, because you've given that personal guarantee. It's now on the line. And so now they are paying thousands on the back end for an attorney to defend them in litigation, when they could have just simply paid a few $100s to have an attorney read that contract on the front end. And that's the same NILs for athletes, or even as it relates to people taking music distribution deals or 360 music deals. A lot of the time, first, let me give this spoiler alert. The money is not real. The money that you see them flashing on Instagram and in their music videos is fake. It is fake. It's not real, guys. And I know a lot of times we see it, we start kind of idolizing it and saying that's goals, but it's just all for show. They are typically taking deals, and those deals have advances written into them. So they might get about $5,000 cash to sign the deal. And, somebody that doesn't have much, they're looking at that like $5,000. That's a new car. No, that's a down payment on a car. That's not the car in its entirety. And they also don't realize that when you are signing these agreements, there's a lot in there. That's an advance, meaning I'm going to give this to you ahead of time, but you need to pay me back for that money I just loaned you. So you just took a loan. And so all of that has to be paid back, and that has to be paid back before you ever get another dollar. And so when you hear artists like Megan Thee Stallion or Glorilla or whomever talk about Rod Wave, and I can name a plethora of artists that take these advances and you're excited about, oh, I just got a deal, I just got a deal, but they still haven't earned any money yet. They have to pay that label back for the music videos, for the cars they rented for that music video, for the shows, for the wardrobe, the hair, the makeup, the tour bus. And I mean, that tab is getting lengthy before they've ever truly taken a dollar themselves home. So all that's glitz and glam and seems like glitter and gold really sometimes isn't. And so that's where it's really important to have an attorney comb through that agreement, break it down for you to say, here's how much you will really have after you sign that deal, or here's how you're going to be able to get out of that deal in 3 years, or you're not going to be able to get out of that deal. It might say it's a 3-year contract, but that business might have an option, and that option means that they can extend your contract year after year after year without you being able to get out of it. And a lot of times people don't realize what those simple words like option mean. They think option is a choice. Not always. And that's why it's really, really, you have to have an attorney comb through that, explain it for you, break it down to you, and you can negotiate the contracts. A lot of times people are like, man, this deal just got offered to me. I gotta take it or it's not gonna come back around. Yeah, right. If they offered you this deal, you can negotiate it. They want you just as bad as you want that ink to that
Yeah.
paper. You need to start saying, well, I see you have this option in here, or I see it says it won't let me out of this contract, but I need to be able to change this. So I need you to include this language. And I'm not going to argue with this with you because I don't want bad blood between me, you, and the label. Let's just let the attorneys handle it. And so now that doesn't make you the bad guy for negotiating a contract. Your attorney's the one going back and forth with another attorney behind closed doors so that everybody else can play nice. But that makes sure that you're happy with the deal that you get in the end game. So again, some of those pros to making sure that you are proactive versus reactive.
Yeah, I can't remember the rapper, but it went viral a couple years ago. This rapper took a huge advance, and didn't read the contract, and then she was on the hook for 5 years to only get 15% of everything that was made. Everything went to the label. And then I'm glad you mentioned NIL too, because we have a lot of kids that want to be athletes, and that's great. We have several that could play on the next level, but what they don't understand about NIL, it's in there. If you're thrown off the team or you're kicked out of school, that money's void and you're not getting paid anymore. So it really is important to understand how all that works. Because, obviously everybody's not going to be an attorney, but it's important to understand how the system works. I do have some questions. I'll get to as many of these as I can.
Mm-hmm.
These are good. This first one is Edward Flowers. He's in 10th grade, a member of our band. And he asks, how hard is it to manage all these different cases?
To whom much is given, much is required. So I am not a standalone attorney. I do have a team here in my office. So I have office managers, clerical staff, paralegals, law clerks. And so with their assistance, I am able to take on more because I've duplicated myself in a way. Now, we also do understand when we have too much on our desk. And so that's something to make sure that we're very self aware. I know that I have too many cases. For example, I'm about to go into trial. I don't really need to take anything else while I'm preparing for trial. So that's sometimes where I do have to turn away cases and refer them out to other attorneys and law firms.
All right, this is
But it's
Zayden
not that
Reach.
hard. Good balance. Good
Yeah.
balance.
This is Zayden Reach. He's in 9th grade. And she asked, what are some experiences you have found the most interesting while working in law?
Mm. So I have horror stories and I also have the fun ones, right? So being able to say that I've worked on contracts for Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce, I mean, like, I get to say that I've done that for Jackson, Mississippi. How dope. And I'm like riding in the car hearing songs, and I'm like, I did that contract. I did that contract. So those are great moments. Also, sometimes you do have the horror stories where every day might not be a great day. Some days you are dealing with termination of parental rights or something like that. And that might not feel as fun. Divorces don't feel as great. For someone who is newly married, that's not always something that I'm happy to brag about. While I am victorious in court, still just doesn't feel good to know that homes are being broken or somebody's still having to deal with something tough of that nature.
All right, I got time for one more. This is LaCridrick Harris. He's in 9th grade. And he asked, what is the most common legal issue people tend to overlook?
Mm. In what realm? Are we talking entrepreneurial? Are we talking criminal? Are we talking?
Just in your
Let
area of
them
expertise.
clarify what.
Just in your area of
Mm.
expertise.
So I'll probably say within, let's tap into entrepreneurial or just in general. I'll give you a general. In general, people don't read contracts. They are scared to invest the hundreds of dollars it costs to have an attorney review and read something and talk through it with them on the front end. They think they don't have money for an attorney, but typically they don't ask how much an attorney costs.
Yeah, even though there is, I mean, most of the time there's going to be a cost. Like we said, that cost is minuscule compared to the legal fees and fines that could come from not having an attorney consult with you in the first place. Now we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Glad we finally got to work this out. But a couple things before we go. You've got a great social media platform. So just tell everybody where they can find you on all the platforms and where you post a lot of cool legal things.
Thank you. So everybody pull out your phones. If you got allowed to have them at school, don't get in trouble because of me.
Yeah.
But definitely follow me at Lex the Lawyer on all social media platforms. I do respond. You are getting a response from me directly. So definitely, if you have more questions, if you are curious to come up here and you want to take a tour of the office, I'm happy to arrange that. If you want to just pick my brain on things, or if you're actually ready to start a business, hey, I'm not knocking you. Get that business going while you're in high school. We can definitely chat about that too. So shoot me a DM, Lex the Lawyer.
Yeah, and you've got great content on there just for simple legal questions that people may not think about. We got 15, 16-year-olds that then, these are things to start thinking about as they become adults. Now, the last thing before we go, Black History Month starts tomorrow. And it's a big deal for us here at Velma Jackson, and I encourage everybody to really celebrate the accomplishments of so many Black Americans that we've had over the years. But this is a field that needs more women. This is a field that needs more young Black kids. We have a lot of first generation Americans in our district. This is a career that needs more bilingual people. So why should these kids really consider
Mm-hmm.
coming into the legal field, no matter what their background is?
The thing about the legal field is when you think about lawyers, you typically think about old, gray hair white men. And you're scared to talk to them because you just feel like they can't relate to you. That's cool that you have that perspective. Then you be someone that somebody else can relate to. Be that down to earth attorney that looks like them, that can speak their language, right? Can you speak Spanish? Can you speak Italian? Whatever language, but that way you can actually reach your community and make a difference within your community.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your newborn. That's so cool to be able to be a new parent. So, and we thank you so much for joining us, Alexis Rayford, Lex the Lawyer, all the way down there in Jackson at Frascogna Law Firm. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
All right, talk to you soon, buddy.